Well, you two obviously have a great deal in common. You both love Shakespeare and have made films about Shakespeare and starred in them yourselves and have careers as directors as well as actors. And your directing and producing career has taken off lately. And congratulations on Thor.
Thank you very much.
Which was really terrific. I
Thank
have to
you.
say I went in with low expectations,
Thank you.
even though you were involved. And I was gratified by what I saw. You
Thank
really
you.
did a great job.
Thank you very much.
And so, and then what is your role exactly as producer on the Wallander series?
I came to those books at about the same time that Left Bank Andy Harris, Oscar-nominated producer of The Queen, amongst many other things, was also looking at the books. Yellowbird were looking for an English language partner. Yellowbird, who also had the rights
to the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah, indeed. And so they were at Cannes that year. It was 2007, and we all were having the same idea at the same time, and they were working out, should it be a feature film? There was a company that wanted to take the books and transpose them to Maine, which has a lot of Scandinavian influence. But we visited Skåne in southern Sweden, and so I was involved in selecting the writer and the directors, and I'm very, very hands-on with trying to keep the ambitions of the show what we agreed to begin with, which was this very sort of minimalist, almost Bergman-like approach to trying to be very spare and quite cinematic with the visuals, and in the style of performing it, trying to steer as clear away from other kinds of detective fiction landscapes and cliches in terms of the way it's delivered. And actually, we've just finished the third one, and I found it more absorbing than the other two because.
So these are seasons of television, so
yes.
Like how many of them?
We do 3 90-minute films each time, and we so we don't have that. We can't and don't crank them out. There are 10 Wallander novels, and we've based each of the films on one of the novels. Although we've sometimes taken a bit of plot from that novel and this novel and moved around a bit with Henning Mankel's permission, and in one case from a short story that he wrote about the character. And I like that because it gives you great subtext. As an actor, you get a chance to go back to the novels, and which I'd read it just as absolutely for pleasure. If bleak Scandinavian murder scenes are pleasurable, but they were to me.
Why is this Scandinavian detective fiction, the Dragon Tattoo and this, why are these so popular?
What do you think? Do you have any kind of theory about?
My only theory, having read the Stieg Larsson trilogy, is that character of Lisbeth Salander speaks to us very directly for what we need right now from a woman character fighting back against oppression really in her country. That is what he was doing, and that is what works, I think. But I'm not familiar with the others.
Well, with
I just know they're hugely popular.
Yeah, they are, and they were right at the vanguard of this sort of breakthrough of a dozen or so Scandinavian writers, but there was Icelandic writers, Norwegian. In the case of Wallander and Henning Mankell, I'd call Wallander a detective poet. He is existentialist philosopher by chance. He's a brilliant detective, or messy, but brilliant. And his problem and his brilliance lies in his empathy with those who suffer at the hands of violence. He's hopeless in his own personal life, but does ask big questions, and he asks these big questions in a great big flat landscape. Skåne goes on forever, no hills, and it's very windy, very cold, and somehow it's an arena for introspection and philosophical thought, and lots of listening. The Swedes themselves, I notice, are quick to get into a great big thick deep conversation. Their humour is subtle, it's there all the time, they're very deadpan, you never quite know when they're joking, but they often are. But they're at the same time unafraid to ask you an enormous question, an enormously personal question very, very quickly into a relationship. And Wallander has that sort of peeled away, open, direct kind of quality, almost innocent in a strange way, except he lives in a dark, dirty world of murder and police work. But yeah, it just is unafraid of the poetic and the philosophical, and he puts it in a landscape which makes it dramatic and appropriate. You're allowed to. You can have big thoughts in a big landscape, and if you're in the far north where there aren't many people around. So he makes, somehow, Mankell makes isolation and introspection sexy.
I'm going to catch up with these. I've been wanting to for a long time. Would there ever be a film version?
Well, I think there could be, because I think they for instance, the first one we made, which I think was one step behind. The visuals. It began with an incident with just spoiler alert here, but where a very dramatic act of violence takes place in a rapeseed field. So that's a very vivid yellow, which we shot underneath a fantastically blue Swedish sky in a great big vast landscape. So it looked as though this violence was happening to the Swedish flag itself. It was the colours and the shape of the Swedish flag, and there was, very strong visual impact to that. It was very, very arresting. And Mankell particularly has across the book, he seems to have 7, 8, 9 real anchor images which seem somehow, they often reflect the national character. I don't know whether consciously or unconsciously, but he has a visual hooks in addition to the sort of interior life of the character, the interior monologue that the books often are. So yes is the answer, I think. Have you seen Fincher's picture yet?
It's good.
Yeah, I can't wait, because I do think he's I'm looking forward to it immensely.
I've argued with people about it, but so you would be interested in maybe directing such a movie?
Yes, I would. To be perfectly honest, I would. I think that
seems like an option. I mean,
yes.
That would be viable.
Well, way back when we first investigated and researched and went and looked at locations, it's hard not to be in that landscape and not think of it visually, and not think of somehow that the translation, given that it's one's getting it at one remove, but it's a translation in the books that we read. The part of what makes the bridge is an interpretation of Sweden and Swedishness. So we're already at several removes from what Mankell originally wrote, but that's part of it, what works about it. He seems to have unlocked something that does speak to people's imagination, and therefore it has a sort of classic and timeless quality, i.e. it bears interpretation. And I'm very excited to see Fincher's. I think Fincher's a master filmmaker, and I'm very excited to see his version of Dragon Tattoo, but I also really, really enjoyed the other trilogy on film from the.
Well, I wish I'd seen the full TV version.
Yeah.
Because they were kind of chopped up for
Yeah.
the movies.
Yeah.
And some of that womanizing was left out.
Yeah.
Would have liked to see that. But you have you turned down Thor II, which could have been a nice big paycheck for you. Why? And what would you do instead?
Well, what I sort of did do instead when it came up, there was an incredible sense of satisfaction that we were even having the conversation. No one had any assumptions about the movie. We knew it was a big risk. Another comic book movie, a different kind of character. People assumed it was a sort of in the second tier of interest, perhaps for even comic book fans. So for it to work as it did was a big thrill.
But I grew up with Thor. I loved Thor.
Well, so did I. And in fact, really, he was the comic book character I knew about. Everything else was sort of peripheral to me.
We all knew about the Greek myths. I mean, the Norse myths and everything. So
yeah. So for me, that was why I felt, this has a great chance of working, because it's been working for many thousands of years. It's not an accident that they the myths persist. But I was very excited, to get the call. But I was required to go straight back into it, and I'd been on it for the best part of 3 years actually, just because things got pushed and dates got pushed. And
that's the hazard of being a director.
Well, on something like that, it's such a huge deal that you can't suddenly step out when, for perfectly valid reasons, it's been pushed by 6 months or some big scheduling thing has happened. But I had another series of Wallander to do, which I'd committed to. I had a play to do in my hometown of Belfast, which I did in September, October, and would love to take that in further, possibly into London.
Which one was that?
It's called The Painkiller. It's by Francis Weber, who's a French playwright. And in fact, it was two movies. It was a movie called Le Merdeur, which I believe literally translated as pain in the arse. And it was Buddy Buddy, the last film of Billy Wilder, which he famously thought hadn't worked, that he hadn't had enough time with it, and that although he cast two legends in Lemon and Matthau, he said they were miscast. This is what he said afterwards. And Jack Lemmon said it didn't feel when they went to work on it like it was a Billy Wilder film. But nevertheless, the fact that he chose it, I think, and they were in it, is indicative of the fact that the situation in the piece is very strong. And so it remains in this new English language version by a fellow called Sean Foley, who I'd worked with before, with him as a performer and me as director. Brilliantly funny man, got real funny bones, physically a master of physical comedy, and it was a total sort of back-to-school experience for me. 90 minutes of two men in adjoining hotel bedrooms with an adjoining door, and one's a murderer, one's a suicide. It's all going to go wrong, and it does. And so I was committed to doing that, and loved doing it, and was going to miss
theater. You like it. It still nourishes you.
Yeah, it does. Nourishes is a great word to use, because I needed creative fresh air blowing around my system, and I felt as though I wasn't. These big pictures need your total concentration, and particularly at the front end of it, you've got to really try and get it on the page, And anyway, timing wasn't right, and so it wasn't the right thing for me.
And now it's fallen apart. Thor II. Have they come back to you?
I don't know that it's fallen apart. The truth is, I don't know exactly what's happened, because I've been completely out of the loop. And I am happily tootling away on things that I've been developing for quite some time. So I got a couple of pictures that have been on the fast track. Well, not fast track. They've been on the development track, which means whatever pace they go at.
One of the things I was going to ask you is, looking at the industry as it was, you did all this research, back in the My Week with Marilyn, Prince and the Showgirl period. But how much has the industry changed since then? How very, very different, and how is it the same?
Well, I think it's true to say that it is both things. It is very different as far as I can judge. Superficial understanding with a massive lack of knowledge about much of it. But what's the same is that at its core are people who really do it because they love it. If you're coming into this business because you want to make trillions of dollars, just forget it. It really is the wrong way. It just won't work that way. And I don't think. I think that there always have been people who do it for that reason, and sometimes they get lucky, and sometimes, maybe more often than not, they make bad movies. But usually at the centre of it are sort of passionately driven people, and the absurdity, some of the lunacy that's in the film My Week with Marilyn, where people clearly take so seriously what from the outside can seem rather silly, or where the level of obsession seems rather silly, and in this case comic. People laugh a lot at the movie. I think that remains the same. All the things that you think couldn't possibly happen amongst groups of sensible, responsible adults do happen on films. People make decisions, say things and do things that you think no sane individual would possibly do. It's too silly, it's too wasteful, it's too self-indulgent, but it happens because they enter some vacuum of kind of inward-looking kind of parallel space and time that provides what Robert Mitchum described as temporary insanity, and whilst in the grip of it, crazy things happen. That happened then; it happens now. What's different? What's different? I suppose that the explosion of everything else, the technological revolution, the digital age that we live in, means that everything is affected. And I guess, I don't know whether you would agree, that if it was true that Marilyn had this week with Colin Clark, did this runaway, I don't know if she could ever do it these days. She certainly couldn't do it perhaps in rural England, even tucked away in Windsor Great Park, which is a big place, but it would seem that the spread of the tentacles of interest are so
TMZ
global.
would be there.
You'd think it's very possibly a chance there would be, and plus, there's this wee thing and this thing and
Now, have you shot digitally yet?
we have in Wallander. We've done that way. Anthony Dodd Mantle shot the first couple of Wallanders. Yeah, he did a wonderful job with the red camera, and we were the first ones to use that on television. Do you think if Marilyn was alive that she would fully engage with our world? It sounds like a daft question. Would Marilyn tweet? Yeah.
She would.
Yeah, I think she probably would.
She had a relationship with her fans.
Yeah,
she knew exactly what they wanted.
And I wonder, do you think that she might therefore have thrived now? That maybe the relationship, which was maybe the most important relationship in her life,
she might have been fed better.
Maybe, or would it have made her less alluring or mysterious? If there was mystery as part of her appeal, would it made her, would that have brought her too close to her public?
She could have become more destroyed more quickly.
More quickly, possibly. Yeah, possibly.
Because we see many examples of that.
Yeah.
Don't we?
Yeah, there's certainly.